Hey everyone, thanks for being part of our online community here at Central.Church, and especially checking out our weekend thoughts. If you haven't experienced our weekend teaching time yet, then let me just encourage you to make sure you go check that out. This is a great time to do that because we began this past weekend looking at a collective group of ideas wrapped around some rhythms that we can add to our life. We're looking specifically at 5 rhythms that if we add them to our lives, they will help us, or believe they will help us, as we look through Scripture to help our neighbor find and experience the healing love of Jesus. So make sure you go check those out. Have you ever thought or heard a story about a family or a group of people, and just when you hear the story or you see a tragic event that takes place, or you hear about a tragic event, and you just say, I hope that never happens to me? Have you ever just said, I hope I never get that text, or I hope I never get that phone call? Well, this past week, we experienced that as a family. I had the opportunity this week and sharing with a family here at the church and kind of walking through a pretty traumatic time in their life. And as I'm sharing with them through texts and different messages and calls on the phone and just kind of walking them through this time in their life, I received a text from my wife asking me if I had heard from our oldest daughter. Now, our oldest daughter, she's off at college. She's in her final semester of her senior year. And my wife shared with me that she had just received a text informing her from our oldest daughter that they were in lockdown in class, and the rumor was that they had an active shooter on campus. Well, that rumor immediately turned into reality. I soon after received a message from our oldest daughter saying, I guess you've heard from Mom already that we're in lockdown and that we have an active shooter on campus. So for several minutes afterwards, I guess for a few hours actually, we engaged off and on through a conversation, through text, kind of walking through the situation. I went over to Twitter and started watching the Twitter feeds of the college that our daughter attends, and seeing different news reports and seeing what the city was tweeting about this, and just trying to gather up as much as information as I could and kind of sharing it with the rest of the family and sharing it with our oldest daughter as she's walking through this traumatic experience in her life, and also for us as a family. And through this experience, we're continuing to communicate back and forth, and until finally we find out that 2 officers had been shot in this time and were killed, and the shooter was taken into custody, and our oldest daughter, finally we received the word, we're all clear, and they were able to get off campus. And Finally, when our daughter we knew was at a safe place, and later on that evening, we were watching news reports and seeing a live news conference that was given, and eventually, my wife that evening, she was showing me some pictures of the shooter. She showed me the mugshot of the shooter, and then also went back, and there were some pictures that were being released and that were out there on social media of this young man that evidently had been a student at the college several years before. And it was hard to believe that when you looked at the mugshot and then you looked at this young man, it was the same young man. It immediately, I just have to say, I didn't have the feelings that I thought I would have. And as you can expect, there was a lot of emotions through that whole experience. But here's kind of what I'm processing and where I've landed in all this, what I'm thinking through. And I don't know, maybe it's just in the season of life I am, and maybe hopefully you can relate to this, but I just kind of thinking through, and because some questions that were asked during our dialogue and during our conversations, my daughter asked very specific, she says, Dad, why do things like this happen? And here she is in lockdown. She said, why do things like this happen? And then we're kind of talking a little bit about evil. And she says, I know about evil, but why do evil people, why is there evil people? Why do they do this? And it's very easy for all of us to kind of just shoot back an answer or feel like we need to answer that, or from a Christian perspective, from a Christian worldview, from a relationship with Jesus, we try to answer, we want to answer those questions, and we want to give this long dialogue and feel like we got to answer, well, sin, and go into all these things where during this situation, I didn't answer at all. And I wanted to give an answer. I was initially wanting to fire off at him, but I didn't give an answer. We just kind of continued in our conversations throughout the day. Later on, as we're looking at these various pictures of this young man and trying to wrap our minds around all that we experienced that day, my wife asked the question. She said, I wonder if we'll ever know exactly. She said, this looks like two different people. The young man that you saw that initially from college, he looked like he was full of life and energy and had his life that was planning and going in a situation. And now you look at this man, his mugshot, and now you know what he's done, that he's taken the lives of two people and what had to be going through his mind. And there was I believe a 4-year gap between all that, from the pictures from when he was in college and then leaving college and now from this. And what happened in this man's life? Will we ever know? And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? We might not ever know, but somebody knows. Somebody knows why this young man left school when he did and didn't graduate. There's people that actually intersected in this young man's life over between that 4-year period, from the time that he left school, for whatever reason, don't know what the reason was, but someone does, that he didn't graduate from college. And something happened to this point 4 years later. There have been intersections with people in this young man's life, and as this young man has entered into people's lives. And I can't help but believe that along the way, there have been different individuals, maybe even individuals that have been followers of Christ, that have intersected in this man's life. Here's what I am, horrific, evil, all that transpired, that we experience as a family, that those college students experience, the loss of life. But here's what I'm kind of wrestling with and what I'm thinking. Let me just share another story. Some of you are very familiar over the past couple of weeks. I think Miss USA was reported several years back. She evidently jumped from a building, committed suicide. Same thing in her life. At different times in her life, people intersected in her. If you start to look at people's lives, and you maybe there's all this wondering why and evil and all these different things, and here's kind of what I'm thinking through. For some reason, God dropped into my spirit. He has kind of led me to specifically Matthew, Mark, and Luke all mention a time in the life of Jesus. Now, realization that how many people did Jesus really come in contact with that never surrendered their life to him? They never became followers. How many people actually heard Jesus speak? How many people actually experienced the benefits of the ministry of Jesus and of Jesus as he walked amongst his creation? How many people, maybe even unknowingly, experienced blessings through Jesus' ministry and through Jesus' life here on earth? But they never responded. They never surrendered their life to him. They never became followers of him. So I'm not saying, that necessarily. Here's what I'm saying is this. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they give us a time in Jesus' life that they all three record where Jesus is walking around and a large group of people were around him. And evidently, from what they share with us, there's this woman that's in the crowd that has had this horrific illness. She's been bleeding all her life. And she touches, she's like, if I can just touch Jesus, if I can just get close enough to him, then her life, she's hoping, will be changed. And sure enough, she touches the hem of Jesus' garment, and her life is forever changed. Her life intersected with Jesus. Now, it wasn't the way she thought, because Jesus, immediately, he stops and says, who touched me? And the disciples are like, what do you mean who touched you? There's people all around you. There's people, all kinds of people. And Jesus says, no, someone touched me. In other words, Jesus knows someone's life been changed through the touch. Someone's touched me. And he turns to this woman, and they engage in this conversation, this relationship, that her life is forever changed. Now, I don't know what was going on or what's been going on in this young man's life. But I wonder in the intersections of this man's life. You know, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. People that you are encountering today, tomorrow, this week, over the next month, over the next year. Well, there's so often we do life, and we just do life. And we are not in tune enough to realize that the different people in the lives that we, and I'm not saying just because we engage with them, or just because we connect with them, or just because whatever, that their life is automatically going to change. But at the same time, we don't know. We don't know how us engaging with them, whether it be a smile, whether it be a kind word, we don't know how that little thing could totally change their life, the direction of their life. We don't know. I don't know, and again, that's something that's out there. The why, the evil, all these different things, and even all that, we don't know. But I just want to share with us through this weekend thought, and kind of what I'm looking at is, don't take so lightly. Don't take so, whether it be the young lady that decided that she just couldn't go on any longer and she ended her life, or this young man and had reached a point, and whatever changed in his life, whatever shifted in his life to where he's at now, that at the same time, that as God puts, and we're in very specific places in our life, that we have the opportunity to influence, that we have the opportunity to share, that we have the opportunity to be used by God to maybe change the total trajectory of someone's life. Now again, how many people's lives were actually changed by Jesus versus, who he came in contact with? It's a choice. People make those decisions, and we wrestle with that, and we know that. But I just want to remind all of us that this precious gift that we've been given, specifically if you have said that you're surrendering your life to Christ, if you claim to be a follower of Christ, we have this amazing gift, this amazing opportunity that Jesus has given to us to be an influencer, to influence our neighbor, to help them find and experience the healing love of Jesus. A lot of people may not come to know Jesus. A lot of people may not ever experience that healing love of Jesus. But that's the thing we don't know. But we have the opportunity, what we do know, to share the healing love of Jesus. Like I said, these are just some things I'm wrestling with, as maybe you're wrestling with different things, and as you walk through different things in your life, please feel free to share through whether it be on YouTube or whether it be on Facebook or whatever. You guys have a great week. I look forward to just talking with some of you this week and worshiping with you this upcoming weekend. Talk to y'all later. Bye.